Hey guys, welcome back to Tribe Talk. This is our last Tribe Talk of the year, and that calls for a celebration. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. Awesome. So today on Tribe Talk, we're going to be talking about 2020 predictions. So Chris, what are your 2020 predictions as far as paid traffic goes?
Yeah, so I have two here that I kind of brought that I thought would be kind of interesting to talk about. And the first one is one that I think we've all heard before for a long time. And it's this idea of using augmented reality in marketing. And I feel like this year specifically, we saw some things happen in the mainstream that are really teeing up 2020 to be a year I think that we'll see it more commonly in the apps that we use in social media and things like that. And so we saw stuff like, the Pinterest Lens release, which is basically a way for us to use Pinterest as an image detector to see what type of shoes those are and what color, and then finding us other pins that look like that. And a few of the other, sort of apps have released similar things like that. Google Lens is another example of that. And I know all of our minds kind of go to Google Glass and that kind of whole disaster that happened a few years back. But it feels like a year where something like that would happen again and it would actually work. And this type of marketing would be involved with that. And 2020 feels like that kind of year. We also saw things, staying on the augmented reality side, like in the NFL with the Baltimore Ravens. If anybody saw the Ravens game a couple weeks ago, they had a huge, giant, actual Raven in the stadium that was an augmented reality Raven. So just flying around, and you could just think about the implications for marketing with that, right? Like if you're at a pop-up event, if you're within a city using, trying to kind of, show whatever sort of product that you're trying to showcase, using that sort of augmented reality, not necessarily through a lens with your phone, but as like a way to kind of showcase some sort of holographic product or feature that you're showing to, the greater kind of audience. And the second one, which I thought was also pretty interesting, that maybe is a little less talked about, but I still think probably bigger implications, especially for us in terms of paid traffic, is this movement of taking everything that we're trying to get our clients to do, whether that kind of is get a purchase on a website or to get an email so that they can ultimately become a customer, is moving everything in app. So basically the movement for a lot of these apps and a lot of these channels, Google, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, is to do all this stuff in app. So you're seeing Google shopping, you're seeing Pinterest shopping, you're seeing Instagram shopping. All of these are moving towards do everything in our app. You don't even have to go to the client's website. Just do everything we have in our app and we'll optimize that experience for you. Just bring the product, bring a good product, basically, right? So there's other things that are kind of being improved there and released there. Even AMP, which is a kind of a Google release, is an example of that, keeping kind of that experience on Google's platform. And so I think that's just starting, and there's going to be a lot more that's going to happen in 2020 that we'll see, that, will just kind of further kind of segmentize these apps. So all of these things are just happening more and more. I think Snapchat and maybe a couple others on the newer side haven't gotten to that point yet. So I'm looking for 2020 to see sort of these newer emergent apps come and kind of make sure all of these activities are within the app. So that's what I'm looking at for 2020.
Yeah, that's awesome. Anyone else have any insights on that, like augmented reality or in-app purchases?
So the initial thought that comes to my mind is Amazon, who they've been, I guess for about a year now, they've been playing with, placing furniture or televisions like in your living room before you buy them. And so like they're usually a leader when it comes to tech in the e-com space. They usually put forth things pretty early on to find out if they're going to, fail or whatever, and then people tend to follow suit. So I think we've got enough of a basis from them that I agree. I think people are going to be following suit on the AR side of things.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see what happens with that for sure. So Courtney, what about you? What are your predictions for 2020?
So for 2020, I think that a larger trend that will affect marketing across the board is going to be privacy and data protection. I think now that Europe has had GDPR for a year, I think we might start seeing more people caring more about where they're shopping and where their data is going, and kind of having more control over what websites know about them or what websites can see. We have California, their CCPA comes into effect in 2020, and we might see more countries or regions adopt similar regulations or laws. Along the same theme, I think that companies that are responsible with data, so companies that aren't in the news for having any data breaches, might have a competitive edge over other of their competitors that might have those problems. And I think that in general, people will start to look for or prefer brands that feel or seem more transparent, that feel honest. And that can be brands that have a really great brand story that people feel like they really know and they're really supporting an actual, like a company and where their money is going. And that can be something that marketers can use across organic content, paid, customer service, anything really. And then finally, I think that as marketing constantly keeps moving towards getting more personalized and more contextual, people might want to have a bit more control over which ads they see and where. So things like ad blocking or ad controls might be a theme that comes up in 2020. And then my second prediction is for email. So email click-through rates dropped around, I think, 9% in 2019. And I think that brands and marketers might really start looking towards chatbots more seriously and AI. And I think that's also just part of a larger trend towards personalization. And I think just people will want to have more control, basically. That's what I think for 2020.
That's great. I know there's going to be tons of regulations that are coming out. I feel like that's definitely going to happen. So, JP, what about you? What are your predictions for 2020?
Yeah, I'm going to jump all over what Courtney shared with the email dropping. And I'm going to say something that I think Chris said it too, which is like, this has been a prediction for like 2 or 3 years now, that SMS is going to take a bigger role in marketing. No clickbait headlines. Like, you're not going to see me be like, email is dead. Like, no one's using it. Like, that's not all we're coming for here. That said, I think that the trend line and the growth on SMS is just too strong to ignore. So what I think you're going to see is you're going to see it rolled into the marketing mix in a more consistent way. So a few things to keep in mind here, right, is that 90% of your text messages are getting read within 3 minutes. And Gartner actually did a study where the SMS response rate's around 45%, email 6%. So what we're seeing is it's fast and it's high engagement. There's just no reason not to include it in the mix. Not saying we're dropping email entirely, because you're going to see that as a feature. There's only so much you can get into a text message. That rich text option that email brings is just too powerful to ignore. But SMS has to be a part of it. As a signal of this, look at what Klaviyo is doing for e-commerce, and even MailChimp. They're both integrating SMS into their service offering. MailChimp's doing it through third-party apps and integrations. Klaviyo is actually having an onboard SMS solution right within the platform. So there's a lot of things that they're doing. These are email providers, but they can read the writing on the wall. They know that email is not the future, so they're bringing SMS in. That should tell you all you need to know about the rise of SMS. So the big question just becomes like, well, how's it going to happen? So SMS is great for transactional stuff, right? It's great for sending, hey, here's your shipping confirmation. Here's your tracking information. Here's a receipt for your purchase. Here's a confirmation of your upcoming appointment. We actually use it here at Ember Tribe for confirming for folks who are coming in who want to have a call with us to consider partnering up, just to remind them that they have their call, because calendars get busy. So that transactional nature, that's a super easy starting point if you're considering SMS. And then you can move from there into more full-fledged marketing efforts, reminders of things, hey, you've been with us for a year, offering discount codes, prompts about new features and things like that. But I really think we're going to see SMS on the rise. If I'm wrong, at me in December 2020, and you can make fun of me at that point.
I do wonder for SMS, like what sort of the max point is there. Like from the marketer's perspective and from our perspective, it's a great tool, right? The numbers and the engagement rates are so high. But from the user's perspective, you just can't ignore a text, and you can't group text like you can with emails. Like you can group your marketing and your brand emails that you get as a user, and you may just be able to ignore those. But for a user, I don't want to get 10, 15, 20 texts from different brands on a weekly basis, right? So I wonder kind of what that point is, and kind of it feels like the competition is going to be really high for brands to get SMS in place for a bunch of users, and there might only be a few brands where people are really loyal that they'll be using this. So I'm curious to see what that kind of looks like and what that ends up as.
Yeah, I would say you definitely don't want to be spamming people with it, but it's actually really helpful, to actually see it come through. I like it. I think it's very easy, conversational, and it's instant. But yeah, got to be careful on how many times you're going to send something to someone. Cool. Well, what about you, Jayca? What is your 2020 predictions?
Sure. I did a thing where I read over some, industry publications about 2020 predictions, and then I went ahead and decided that they were kind of wrong and a little bit off about some of them, right? So it's not necessarily that they're wrong, but anyway, one little think piece I read was all about how, big brands are going to start doing, micro campaigns, and they're not going to be planning their strategies 6 months in advance for a 6-month or a 12-month campaign. And I'm thinking in my head, when was the last time anybody did that? That is not, it's just not how we operate here at EmperTribe, right? We come up with a hypothesis, we test the hypothesis, we get the data back, and then we change the campaign. And if that happens inside a week or 2 weeks, that's pretty standard operating procedure for us. I think the point that the think piece was trying to drive home with it, to what a couple other people have said on the call today, people expect personalization at this point, right? They don't expect products marketed to the masses. They expect whatever product that they want to buy. If they're, a stay-at-home mom shopping for their child, they expect that product will relate to their eco-friendly lifestyle, and their husband who likes tacos, and their older child who wants to match their little brother, or whatever it is, right? There are so many products that can cater to a variety of needs. It's a matter of calling out all those different needs and then finding the audiences where those needs resonate. And you can't do that in a giant, super generic ad that runs for 6 months, right? So I think that on the list of predictions for 2020 is that sort of skill set and that sort of operating is going to just become more valuable, right? It's going to become more valuable to not say, hey, our demographic is 30 to 45-year-old women who live in big cities. That's not enough anymore. We got to dig deeper, and we got to figure out what it is exactly that is appealing to those customers beyond something that you could say appeals to a ton of customers. The other sort of piece that I dug into was that Facebook is again simplifying what they're going to be doing for targeting. Basically, they're taking away a couple interests, and they're changing what size images are allowed in the feed. And basically, this is more of Facebook's, and we talked about this 100 times, this is more of Facebook's and basically every platform's sort of drive toward, let us manage all of this. It's okay if it's a black box. You don't need to know who we're targeting. You don't need to know what interests are working or what ages or anything else along those lines. Let our algorithm take care of it, and we'll get you situated. So as a marketer who's been doing this for a wicked long time at this point, that makes me both nervous and excited, because yes, that means that the algorithm is getting really smart, and there's definitely no way that I'm any smarter than an algorithm, but it does take a significant amount of control away from the advertiser to just sort of say to Facebook, okay, here's 7 product images that you've pulled from my website. Go ahead and pick whichever one you think should go to whichever audience, and I don't need to know anything about it, right? Because that doesn't really allow us much in terms of optimization beyond that, right? We can just say okay, well, there's that campaign that worked or didn't work, right? There's not much that we can really glean from that. So as we appreciate what the algorithm to do, the challenge for us becomes in 2020 is figuring out where we can still retain control so that we can still get information from these ad campaigns. It's really about trying to be able to identify customers and be able to reach them and do that profitably, and use the algorithm to do that instead of just trusting the algorithm to do whatever it wants. Because for most clients, to the point I made earlier, even though Facebook wants a completely textless image it can pull from your website to use across all of your ads, that's probably not the ad that's going to resonate most with your audience, even though that's the easiest option for Facebook.
Jayca, what do you think about the confluence of those two things, the heavy AI usage and the personalization? I mean, do you think that personalization is going to be manually driven by marketers, or do you think it's going to be more reliant on algorithms and AI to try to guess what kind of personalization it needs to apply to you specifically?
Yeah, so that's like, this is like tugging at my heartstrings here, right? I'm like, I've got to be better at this than an algorithm is. And I think where the breaking point comes is it's got to still be up to humans or marketers, brand owners, whatever it is, to decide how to direct the algorithm, right? Because the algorithm is only as good as the learning. So if we don't give it if we give, for instance, and I keep using Facebook, but this is happening on Google and it will happen on the other platforms as they mature. If we teach it to go after the wrong audience, it's always going to go after the wrong audience. It doesn't matter how smart the algorithm is. We've taught it to go after the wrong audience with the wrong messaging. So I think that at the very least, even as these get smarter and more able to personalize, there's always going to have to be a human hand guiding it, right? There's always going to have to be a human hand saying, okay, this is where you want to start, algorithm. Okay, yes, algorithm, that was correct. Please keep doing that action. Apparently the algorithm's a child. I've humanized it. You're welcome.
I for one welcome our new robot overlords, but apparently that's not the prevailing thought here. So I'll stay away from that one.
Is this where you guys thought we'd be as far as marketing goes in 2020?
So I, for one, thought that, to Chris's point, virtual reality would be further along, right? I thought that it would be a lot easier for Joe brand owner to implement something that, say, like Sephora has, where you can try on lipstick, or you can try on clothes or glasses just using your phone. Like, how hard has that got to be? Why can't I, as Joe owner, do that? Why do I have to be a multi-million-dollar brand to do that? So that's one thing that I think we've missed, and I hope he's right about that gets easier and better and more accessible.
I've been surprised at the strength of Facebook and Google to hold on for as long as they have. I mean, they're still the 800-pound gorillas in the room when it comes to paid social and paid search, and they have been for years now. And every year, I think this is the year that DuckDuckGo is going to rise up, that Bing's going to come in, that Pinterest is going to really make a move, that Twitter is going to finally figure out what to do with its UI or whatever. Like, I keep thinking that's going to happen because this just can't keep happening. But it's like the Patriots getting to the playoffs every year. It just keeps happening no matter how much I don't want it to. So maybe we'll see some diversification in 2020, or maybe not. I don't know.
No, that's true. Well, thank you guys, and we thank you all for tuning in. We hope you have a great holiday. Have Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you guys in the new year. Bye.